Mr. Cleverly, great to have you in the programme. It's an awful moment. Sitting on days like this, I do go back to getting my own SYS results many, many years ago. How has it gone this year?
Well, look, firstly, I want to say huge congratulations to the students because, as you said in your introduction, they've experienced a really tumultuous couple of years and they've really worked hard to get to where they are at the moment. So we've got exam results that will be coming out later on this morning. The marking process has gone according to plan. The exam process has gone according to plan. There'll be, I think, lots of students, perhaps even the majority of students, able to get into their first choice institution. And so, we're feeling the plan that we put in place has, we believe, worked.
Waiting for results, of course, but just in terms of the broad outline of those results, I mean, we are seeing results coming down compared to where we were last year, significantly.
So Ofqual, we've been working very closely with, and the plan was always to get those grades back to the kind of levels that we were seeing before the pandemic. They were more generous, and I think that's legitimate, but they were more generous during the pandemic years. It was always the plan to get them back. That is going to be seen this year, so students might get slightly lower grades than perhaps they were expecting and that they were hoping. But as I say, I think we should see the majority of students get into the institutions they want to.
I suppose the question, and it's been a question that's been posed by a number of people, is whether or not this kind of educational cohort, the class of 2022, was the correct year in which to get grades back in line with kind of pre-pandemic levels. They have not sat an exam. Their studies have been completely crucified thanks to the pandemic and remote learning and so on. And we know that across the country, the impact of COVID differs depending on how much money is floating around in an area. So just justify the decision to kind of make this lot of students deal with it rather than next year.
Well, as you say, this group of students had a really tough time. That's why I congratulate them so much. And we put adaptations in place. So we made sure that the exams were fair. We gave greater spacing between the exams just in case students did contract COVID, which put pressure on the marking bodies, but they've stepped up to their responsibilities. But funnily enough, it was the students themselves who were most vocal in their desire to ensure that they had qualifications which were fair but robust and taken seriously both by institutions and employers. And whether it be A-levels or the new T-levels that are coming out this year or other vocational training, that's what we've achieved.
But just to return to the point about the disparity, I mean, FFT Education Data Lab, that published in Times Educational Supplement earlier this year, there is a north-south split when it comes to education. Pupils in the North East missing 15.3% of lessons compared to just 11.6% of lessons lost in London. When there is such a marked and statistically significant regional disparity, why is it fair that we treat all pupils this year in the same fashion?
Well, the thing that we have got to do is get back to school-based teaching and exam-based assessment. This year, we've taken a step towards normality. We have still had mitigations in place. There are adaptations during the exam, and obviously we have injected a lot of money into making sure there's catch-up tuition, which will probably benefit the cohorts coming in after this one, to be fair. But nevertheless, this is what the teaching profession, this is what the students, this is what employers and institutions want. We've done it in a progressive and fair way. And I think today what we'll see is a lot of students getting into the institutions they want to get into, or into the apprenticeships, or into the jobs that they are going to be moving into.
We will return to discussing, I'm sure, the A-level results once we've got the data and we've had the chance to go through it. But could we just talk just in general terms about your approach to schools? I mean, pretty clearly there are incredible financial pressures on everyone at the moment, but particularly in the educational sector. We've seen teachers getting a much trumpeted pay rise, 5% for existing, 8% for new staff. But that money's coming out of existing budgets. We saw CPI getting to 10.1% yesterday. Isn't this now the time to say that we need to see a significant and serious expansion of our schools' budgets?
Well, what we have seen is a very significant expansion already. It's worth remembering that
per pupil spending is lower in real terms than it was in 2010.
Yeah, but what we have seen through this spending review period is a £7 billion uplift into the schools budget, 4 billion of that coming into this next academic year. We completely recognise there are cost pressures on schools. The majority of schools' budgets, of course, is staff pay, and the award that the school system received was in recognition that there was going to be an upturn in teacher pay.
But it's the schools that are going to have to pay for it. It's the schools that are going to have to pay for the increased energy bills. I mean, we've got a situation where 2 in 5 head teachers at the moment are suggesting that they will be forced to cut teaching staff in their schools in order to make the budgets work. So again, I ask you, we know that there's going to be an emergency budget come September, no matter whether it's Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak. What would you need to see in that budget in terms of a pay rise, in terms of a rise in the budget for the DFE that would actually balance all this out?
Well, as I say, we got a very good settlement. We've got a generous settlement. The IFS, which holds the government to account very robustly, has said that they believe that the pay rises are affordable within the financial...
Just about affordable, but they do also warn that next year looks problematic.
Yeah, and that's why whoever wins has committed to have an emergency budget, and it wouldn't be right for me to preempt that. But we do recognise that there are cost pressures. We do recognise that school leadership is going to need to make some really important decisions about expenditure. But as I say, we had a good settlement during the SR period, and the IFS, who, as I say, hold us to account very robustly, has said they believe that these are affordable.
Yeah, and also pointing out that next year is going to be rather difficult. The problem is, of course, that all of these costs are coming and they continue to increase. As I say, we've got 2 in 5 head teachers saying they're looking at cutting staff. I just think that there are people genuinely questioning the Conservative Party's commitment to education. There have been 6 education secretaries since these A-level kids started secondary school. Justine Greening, Damien Hines, Gavin Williamson, Nadeem Zahawi, Michelle Donnellan, blinking you'll have missed her, and of course yourself. Only Gavin Williamson lasted longer than 2 years in post. Reassure me. In what way are the Conservatives committed to secondary education when you go through education secretaries? So,
well, look, I can't. I mean, I can't be held accountable for the duration of my predecessors in their tenure. But what we can say is, this badge, the T-levels, this is about the increased commitment to really, really good quality vocational training. We've seen, as I say, that good SR settlement. We've seen an increase in the pay of starting teachers to attract the brightest and the best into an incredibly important profession. I've spoken with the heads of the teaching unions, the heads of academies, to thank them for the work that they've put in over these really, really tough times. We absolutely recognise that education unlocks benefit not just for the individuals but for society as a whole.
How many schools have had the COVID-compliant ventilation installed yet?
So I don't have that figure off the top of my head, but the point is that what we know that schools have shown a remarkable amount of resilience and adaptation. Children have been
back. Is it possible it's not very many at all?
Children have been back at school over the last couple of years. We've seen that we can have children in school being educated, being examined, keeping them safe and healthy. That's what schools have already shown themselves capable of doing. And you could.
How many schools have had the ventilation installed? That was promised months ago.
So the point we're saying is schools have demonstrated that they can teach, that students can learn, and they can do so safely in a COVID-safe way. They've shown they're already able to do that. That's what we want and expect them to do. And you can, and I know, you want to focus on this particular element, but the point I'm saying is schools have showed that they can teach students safely with the circumstances they've currently got.
I'm just wondering, with schools, looking unable to pay their fuel bills, whether come the winter time we will once again be asking schools to open windows in lieu of ventilation units that this government has promised.
Well, as I said, schools have already demonstrated that they can safely teach children within a COVID environment. We've seen that happen. That is why students have been at school, which is great. It's the best place for them to learn.
Indeed.
Which is why they have been able to sit exams, which is the best way of assessing how much they've learnt, and which is why today we are going to see hundreds of thousands of happy students getting into their first choice institutions and plenty of others going to great universities or apprenticeships or employment using Clearing or Clearing Plus or the other advice and assistance that that's available to them.
Well, I'm sure the Head Teachers Union would, if you can, find an answer to that question about how many schools have had COVID-suitable ventilation installed. But can we just talk completely off topic, well, off your brief, I should say. We're about to see another set of rail strikes. Only 1 in 5 trains apparently running today. The RMT making it pretty clear that there needs to be a significant increase in the offer for their members. What is your view on the frequency of these strikes and indeed what they are asking for?
Well, we should remember that the rail unions are there to look after their members. And whether it's the current head of the rail union or Bob Crow in the past, they've done that very effectively. They've got a very, very good salary package. They have incredibly good, ridiculously good terms and conditions. And what they're doing through these strikes is they are disadvantaging people trying to get to work, trying to put food on the table, trying to keep a roof over their heads. I think Grant Shapps has made it absolutely clear that these strikes are unfair and completely inappropriate, and it's wrong that people are held hostage by the unions in this way.
I do also just want to quickly ask you about Liz Truss and her plans to cut tax. I mean, we've talked already about the IFS this morning and how diligent they can be. I mean, they've said this about Liz Truss policies, indeed of Mr Sunak as well. Hard to square the promises that both are making to cut taxes over the medium term with the absence of any specific measures to cut public spending. I mean, it does feel that the tax policy, which has been a big part of Liz Truss's campaign, isn't quite hitting the economists in the way that it's hitting the Conservative Party membership.
Well, Liz has made it absolutely clear that this is about stimulating economic growth. You grow the economy, you can take a slightly smaller slice of a slightly bigger pie, or hopefully a significantly bigger pie. That's very, very well established economic theory. And frankly, what we have seen is growth in the UK economy not be as vibrant as we would like. That's what Liz is pursuing. It's a growth strategy. And if you don't have a plan for growth, you don't have a plan for government, is the point I would make. But ultimately today, I'm here with my education secretary hat on, and actually seeing this group of young people getting these results, moving forward into the world of work or higher education. These are the people that are going to help fuel that economic growth. And I congratulate them enormously for the hard work they've put in over the last couple of years. But
with your Cabinet Minister, senior member of government hat on, can we just talk about the cost of living crisis? And again, we saw yesterday CPI 10.1%, probably up to 13 by the end of the year. Incredible amounts of money being spent already on our energy. When you have a director of Offgen resigning from their post because they feel that the Ombudsman is incapable of managing the situation, there's a fundamental problem with the way the market is working, isn't there?
Well, what we are seeing globally and the inflation that we're seeing right across Europe, across America, across the developed world, driven in large part by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is something, as I say, driven by an exceptional set of circumstances.
Specific to the UK, is Offgen fit for purpose?
Well, look, I've not had a chance to read the full statement of the regulator. I saw the headline that they resigned, but I think, unsurprisingly, I was focusing very, very much on making sure the education system...
But unless you had concerns about Offgen before you read that headline, I mean, do you have confidence in its ability to work as an organisation?
Well, I'm going to read properly the point that's made. I've been focusing, as have teachers, as have universities, as have Ofqual and UCAS and everyone involved in education, on this incredibly important point of the year. I've rather had my blinkers on, I have to confess, on this one, because it is so important. We had a plan. It seems that plan is working, and once we get through the today and next week, when the GCSE results have come out, I'll be able to focus more broadly on the full spectrum of events happening. But at the moment, my focus has been on the young people.
Mr. Cleverly, great to have you on. Thanks for being with us.